Hi, my name is Miss Brown, and today I will be teaching you about the voyage to America, also known as the 13 colonies. This lesson will be geared to elementary students from grades 1 to 6. The objective for today is students will understand the concept of how and why the British came to America. Students will also be able to identify the 13 colonies. To begin, let's start with watching a brain pop on the 13 colonies to familiarize you with what it's about.
9, 10, 11, 12, I'm missing one. Georgia, thank you. Dear Tim and Moby, what were the 13 colonies? From Brett. The 13 colonies were a group of English territories established in America during the 1600s and early 1700s. They were Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Right, these eventually became the original 13 United States. But before that, there were just a few of the many European colonies popping up all over North America. No, settlers weren't just coming from England. Starting in the late 1500s, people from all over Europe, places like Spain, France, Sweden, and the Netherlands, headed to the New World for different reasons. Some were escaping religious persecution, and others came in search of wealth, but they all wanted a chance at a better life. These settlers claimed land and established colonies, mainly along the East Coast. Well, the East Coast was closest to Europe, and they came by boat. The first permanent English settlement in North America was the colony at Jamestown, established in 1607. That's in present-day Virginia. The Pilgrims followed in 1620, establishing a settlement at Plymouth, in what is now Massachusetts. Over the next 100 years, more English colonies sprang up all along the Atlantic coast, from New Hampshire in the north to Georgia in the south. Meanwhile, France gained control of much of present-day Canada and the American Midwest. The two empires squared off for control of North America in the French and Indian War from 1754 to 1763. England won the war. It got control of Canada and strengthened its hold on the 13 colonies. Most colonists identified themselves as British citizens. They bought goods from British factories and kept up on news from England. Wealthy colonists copied British styles in clothes, dancing, and social etiquette. And the colonies all had local governments modeled after English political institutions. Still, they had their own.
The 13 colonies. So here's a map of the 13 colonies. The 13 colonies are along this line over here, next to the Atlantic Ocean. So what is a colony? A settlement in a new area. The first 13 colonies were in eastern part of America. Who is a colonist? An Englishman or woman that moved to the new country. So here's a map of the original 13 colonies. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and so on. We'll get into specifics throughout the PowerPoint. So there were three types of colonies: the New England colonies, the Middle colonies, and the Southern colonies. The New England colonies were at the top of the map. So these that are colored purple, so the New England colonies were, or are, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. The middle colonies were Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and the southern colonies, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So, who can tell me, can you tell me one of the New England colonies? Maybe one of these, right? Can you tell me a middle colony? It would be one of these: Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. And if someone asks what is a southern colony, you would say Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, or Georgia. At this point, I I would check for comprehension from the students and see if they understand the three different types of colonies and explain further. So, this PowerPoint is breaking down the New England colonies right now. The middle colonies and the southern colonies. Okay, we went on. Okay, so the New England colonies, as we know, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. In the New England colonies, people made money by selling fur. Farming in the New England colonies was difficult due to poor soil, cold climate, and short growing seasons. So people also made money by selling fish and building ships. And also in the New England colonies, the climate in the New England colonies was colder. The geography of the New England was mostly hills and rocky soil. The natural resources of New England were fish, whales, trees, and furs. The established religion of the New England colonies was Puritan. Religious freedom did not exist in New England. So in New England, people in New England towns lived, worked, and worshiped close together. So they worshiped in towns, in little towns. And the meeting house and the church were the most important buildings in the town. New England colonies. For school, they had one room, one teacher, very strict. Children were often whipped for punishment. The main subject was reading. Natural resources, so it breaks down, this is specifically talking about New Hampshire. The major natural resources in New Hampshire was the forest. The timber, the region was used for shipbuilding. So as you can see, Massachusetts and all of these are right by the Atlantic Ocean. So, and they came over on a ship. And the primary method of transportation at that time was on through boat or ships over the water. So this was very important. So the natural resources made in New Hampshire was the timber, and that's very important because they needed it at that time. In Massachusetts, the natural resources was also timber for building ships, and they fished for food. In Rhode Island, was more mixed than the other New England colonies. It was warmer, and they could have farms. They produced dairy. In Connecticut, the natural resources found in the Connecticut colony included better soil, timber, and fish. So here's a picture of the New England colonies.
Students will now be placed in homogeneous groups to complete thinking maps and worksheets. Students use thinking maps to compare how life was during colonial times versus how life is today. Here is an example of a worksheet completed by one of the students.